Hello viewers, you're welcome to the Admin Talk Show. This is your host today, Roderick Darcy Younger. I'm glad to present to you my special guest for the day, and we'll be talking about a wonderful and, should I say, sensitive topic. And just stay back and relax and enjoy yourself. So today with me on the program, I have a guest, and her name is Rosanna.
Hi.
Hi. So please, can you just introduce yourself and to whatever level, and tell us who you are and what you do. And once more, I'm happy to have you here in the talk show.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a deep pleasure and an honor to be here today. I'm Rosanna Avinto, and I work at the University of Eastern Finland. I live in Kuopio, and I'm Finnish Kenyan.
Okay.
I was born here in Finland. I lived my childhood in Kenya and moved back around 31 years ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's beautiful, because when I heard Finnish Kenyan, I expected Kenyan Finnish, or but that explanation clearly explains what you mean. So you're welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And today we'll be talking about tips to improve, or should I say tips to immigrant women in overcoming discrimination in Finland. So this is what we'll be talking about today, and we'll be talking about this in 3 segments. So we'll be looking at this discrimination for women at the level of the schools. Good thing you are part of an institution, academic institution. And also we'll be looking at the discrimination in maybe the work sector. And then generally, lastly, we'll be talking about probably discrimination in terms of the general society, and we'll be talking about civic responsibilities for women. So once again, thank you for being here. So let's go right away. What is your take on discrimination on women generally?
Well, discrimination is a huge word, and women is also a huge thing. So discrimination, for basically, is a person being treated differently because of who they are, in aspects of gender or ethnicity or religious background, or any myriad of issues. When it comes to women, of course, then it's discrimination against a person because of their gender, which happens to be female. And definitely women all over the world experience gender discrimination, and women in Finland experience discrimination still, even though it's paradoxical. In the Nordic region, we have a high level of gender equity, but women are still discriminated against. Finland's one of the most dangerous countries to be a woman. In terms of,
Did you hear that?
In terms of, every third woman in Finland experiences gender-based violence.
Wow.
Yeah, second after Slovakia.
That's an interesting statistics. So every third woman in Finland experiences that. So this is irrespective of whether this woman is an immigrant or a citizen.
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. But can we be specific on the discrimination? So let's start talking about racial discrimination.
Okay.
And in my own view, or what we see happening today in the society is it's discrimination generally, or racial discrimination. It's more relative. Like those who feel they are being discriminated upon, they have their justification. And then those who are the accusers, if I may put it that way, they also have a defense mechanism. For instance, let's say someone feels he or she is being discriminated, or a woman feels she's discriminated because she's a woman or because she's black, while the accuser, in quote, feels like, but I was just given a normal description. So that happens now and brings some kind of problem in defining what discrimination is. And I think that affects the whole concept of discrimination.
Yeah, well, definitely person can face discrimination for several reasons.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about women of color in Finland, they get discriminated upon because they're women, they get discriminated because of their color or their ethnicity, and even religion. So you kind of have women having a double or a triple or a quadruple burden of discrimination. So for instance, you have a black Muslim woman,
Yeah.
who would then, face discrimination because she's black, she's a woman, and she's Muslim because she wears a hijab or whatever. So this does happen, and it is a phenomenon that we definitely have to recognize in the Finnish society, that discrimination is there. And I think that, we can't not say discrimination doesn't happen. It does happen in many forms. But there are also instances when, somebody says something and you feel that that's discrimination, but you have to kind of assess the situation, read the room. Was that actually discrimination, or was it a curiosity, or was it a microaggression? Because we also have this concept of microaggressions, which, and I don't like the word microaggressions at all, because for me, it's also an aggressive word.
Yeah.
So microaggression is basically when, let's say, you keep getting asked questions like, okay, where are you from? Mm-hmm. And then you say, I'm from Helsinki.
Yeah.
Or in my case, I'd say I'm from Kuopio. And they say, okay, yeah, but where are you really from? I'm like, I'm from Finland. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but where are you really from, Finland? Where were you born? Finland. But where were your ancestors from? And I would say Finland, because I do have Finnish ancestors. Mm-hmm. So sometimes those sort of questions get asked so much that you never feel like you are a part of the society. You never accept it. Even if you're here, you're living here, you've been here for a long time, you never accept it because you look different. Your skin color is different. Your religion's different. And those are what are called microaggressions. Mm-hmm. But I don't like, as I said, I don't like the word microaggressions because it is an aggressive word. Sometimes these questions are asked because a person's actually curious, really curious about you, and not necessarily because they don't accept you, but they're just curious. So finding a balance between that is always really, really hard, because sometimes those questions are asked with an intent of making you feel excluded. So how do you find a balance? And finding that balance is really hard. I still have problems with that myself, even though I've lived here for so long.
Okay, so you as someone who works in an educational institution, so what can you say, or let's go straight to the point. What are some of the tips that some immigrant women who feel that they are victim of this discrimination, how can they use some coping mechanism, or so to say, to be able to live freely and participate, have a good educational life while at school?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing I would say to women, immigrant women in Finland who face discrimination or feel that they face discrimination, is that, first of all, get a support circle. You need to have family, you need to have friends, you need to have people who support you. So, because you need to have people around you with whom you can talk through that issue of how you actually feel, and who can support you in managing those feelings, and also sorting out through actual cases of discrimination. So you always need a support circle. So the first thing for me is get a support circle. Don't be alone in whatever you're facing. Make sure you have family, friends, and even professionals around you, because sometimes you need professional help to get through things. Another thing is then know the law. That's important.
Very important.
You need to know the law,
Yeah.
and you need to know your rights.
Yeah.
So get to know, what does it mean? How is discrimination defined in the law? It's very clear. You know, discrimination is, you know, treating people differently because of your ethnicity, your skin color, your religion, and so forth.
Yeah.
So you need to know the law, and then what does the law say, and what are your rights? And I think that's something that sometimes we don't always pay attention to. That recognize that you do have rights. You don't have to take the discrimination. There are laws, and then if you are in a school, if you're in a university, if you're studying, or if you're in a workplace, there are in organizations processes to deal with discrimination. So if it's your teacher or your professor or a fellow student or, you know, a fellow co-worker who's discriminating against you, there are processes to take those issues forward. And there are people in organizations to help you. So for instance, at our university, it's very clear discrimination is, you know, we have zero tolerance for discrimination. Okay. So there is a process. If you are discriminated against, you know, there are contact people for students, there are contact persons for staff, and there is a whole process on how to deal with the discrimination. Okay. So that's clear, and I think it's important for people to get to know those processes. So find out, what are your rights, what are the processes, and get to know them clearly. Then documentation. This is important. So once you experience a discrimination, document it. Finland is a country that loves documentation. Document who did what, when, where. Okay. Write it down. And this is important because then at some point, if you're going to have a process, you need to have something, you know, document it, because you might need to show pattern of what's going on, and then reporting. So when it comes to reporting, there are several things you can do. There is, of course, the police. Now, I understand it's very intimidating for somebody to go up and say, I'm going to make file a criminal report against you for discrimination. It can feel intimidating, especially when women of immigrant backgrounds come from countries where they're not very trusting of the police force. Or when you think the police may discriminate, even in Finland sometimes. This has unfortunately happened. The police have also been found to discriminate. And even that, documented. Yeah. So, but in general, doing a police report. But if you can't do it alone, there's also organizations to help you do that. There is the Rikosuhripäivystys, which is an organization that basically you can go to, and they offer support to victims of crime. And because discrimination is a crime. Yeah. So they can help you through the process and help you through the documentation, help you go to the police. And if you don't want to report it, they'll still they'll handhold you. So that's one good organization to always remember. And then, of course, we have Discrimination Ombudsman, who is a legal authority in Finland who investigates cases of discrimination. So you can make a report to the Discrimination Ombudsman, and then they help you as well to check, was this actual case of discrimination, what happened, and then how to take it forward. So those are at least, you know, some of the things, but that's not all. Yeah. I would also say that as a woman, you also need to build your resilience. So, because discrimination it's not an easy thing to face, and it can really lower your self-esteem. So you really need to work through your self-awareness. That, okay, that person has said bad things about me because of my color. And you're, no, that's not right. You know, that person says I'm stupid because I'm black or I'm brown. No, I'm a beautiful black or brown woman, and be proud of it. So not to take the insults that are hurled against you because of your color or your gender. So it requires a lot of strength to build the resilience in yourself and be self-aware and proud of yourself, regardless of what people say. Because the thing is, discrimination has always been, and that's a very sad thing to say, it has always occurred, and it will occur, but we shouldn't give up the fight. And then my last point is, kill the discriminators with kindness.
That is so wonderful. Dear viewers, I hope you heard that. Can you say that again? That's very, so wonderful.
I'd say kill your discriminators with kindness, because I think somebody who discriminates against you has a very low self-esteem and are weak in the sense that they have to bring out their own feelings of unworthiness and bring it out on you. So kill them with kindness. Be kind to them. Tell them, bless you. You know, somebody tells you, you know, you're worthless, or, you know, words are very hurtful words. Just say, thank you very much. You're welcome.
So,
and usually that does shut people up, because they don't expect you to be kind. But be kind. Don't retaliate. That's what I'd say. Don't retaliate, because there's also a danger in retaliation. Just be kind.
So if I may ask, some of the points you said, you laid emphasis on documenting the discrimination, but unfortunately, especially for immigrant women, what can someone do, what can an immigrant woman do in a situation where you cannot document this racism? For instance, somebody just says something to you, you didn't record that, there's no witness, but then that, you know, affects your self-esteem. And whether it's at the workplace, maybe your boss says such a thing. So in a case where you cannot document racism, how do you actually go about that?
Well, I don't actually mean, I mean, of course, if you can get somebody recorded, that would be great, but it's always not possible to have, you know, you can't go walking around with cameras. But, I mean, write it down. Like, what happened? So, you know, let's say we're in the workplace together, and every day I come over and I say bad things to you. Write it down. When did that person say this to me, and where did this happen? In what context did it happen? Write it down, because that's part of the documentation process, which you then, when you present this in a report, you can say, we were in this sort of a setting, and this is what happened. Who were there, or were we alone? It doesn't matter even if you were alone and somebody discriminates against you, even if there are no witnesses, but somebody discriminated against you, it's still discrimination. But write it down, because it's very hard later to remember, oh, what were the exact words that were said and who were there? And it's a very daunting process to start trying to remember it, because that can bring a lot of trauma out, because discrimination is traumatizing. And that is why I also brought out the point that it's important to also reach out to professionals. It's not a weakness to go to a psychologist. It's actually a strength, because you're taking care of yourself.
So you're saying that to the immigrant woman. It's not a weakness to go to a psychiatrist.
Not a psychiatrist, a psychologist.
Psychologist. Sorry about that. Psychologist. You know, if you get to the level of psychiatrist, then your case is doomed.
Well, a psychiatry is a whole different field of medicine. But basically, if you need help because, as I said, discrimination is traumatizing. It is a trauma.
So much.
And if you keep going through that trauma again and again and again, so sometimes you might need help just talking to somebody who's like a psychologist, a professional who helps you deal with your feelings and helps you, learn different techniques in how to calm yourself down, into also getting your own mental health better, because unfortunately, that, as I said, it's trauma.
Yeah.
So sometimes you might need help working through those feelings, because then the trauma can affect you in different ways. So it's not a weakness to seek out a psychologist to help you work through feelings, and because trauma can also manifest itself in your own body. I'm not a medical doctor here,
true.
but I think that it's important sometimes to seek professional help. And then I'm not saying that we need to smother our feelings or not get angry. Actually, we should get angry at discrimination. We should be angry, because it's wrong. It's fundamentally wrong, and we should be angry that discrimination happens in Finland, which is supposed to be the epitome of gender equity in the world. So we should be angry. But how we deal with that anger, we can deal with it constructively and, in a way that also educates people. And this is the other thing that I wanted to bring out, that so as you deal with, as an immigrant woman, dealing with discrimination, educate your sisters, your brothers, your children about discrimination, so that they don't have to go through the same struggles that you do, and that they know what they should do when they face discrimination. So educating others about discrimination, and also people who might not understand that they are discriminating. It's also a good thing to have a talk with a person who's discriminating, say, hey, you said this to me, and I didn't like it because of this and this. Do you understand, how that makes me feel? And it might stop somebody and, turn around things.
Yeah, especially for someone who doesn't know that that act was an act of discrimination.
Yes.
So then the person gets the awareness, and that person cannot do it to somebody else. So in Finland we have the Finnish Act of Equality for Men and Women, and when we talk of discrimination, it's always linked to equality. And to me, I feel like there's so much by the government and probably also other institutions to support women generally. And I would say that if a woman walks up and gives a complaint about, in a case where now it's a man, then for some reasons, she just gets the upper hand in the whole process. And I think to a certain extent, some people say women too are being exploitative when it comes to this whole discrimination thing. And in relation to that, I just want you to tell me a little bit about that. And then also, how can immigrant women get more involved in the civic obligations? And would you encourage people in terms of awareness to be more sensitive, for other women to become activists? Because you spoke about also seeing a psychologist, but also to a certain extent, maybe if you get information from your fellow immigrant, it's in a way a little bit helpful. So tell us a little bit about that, the civic obligations for immigrants, and also discrimination in terms of equality, probably preferential treatment for women.
Okay, so unfortunately, yes, it does happen sometimes that some women may use the discrimination card against men. That's also wrong. But I wouldn't like to say that's the majority of women.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think those cases are rare and quite unfortunate, perhaps especially in child custody cases. You do see that, and I do think that there are also men's groups that then advocate as well for men's rights in child custody cases, for instance, where this has been seen to be happened. But yeah, but I don't think that's the majority of women. And and I would like to say that, you know, obviously that's wrong, and that's something we should be very mindful of in terms of, you know, accusing. It's very easy to accuse somebody of discrimination. So be sure that is what you're seeing actually discrimination, or was it something else? So I always say, take a moment and breathe, count to 10, breathe, think, and then act. Not act first, because sometimes, you know, as I said, retaliation can be really, really fast, and then can take you down a long, dwindling road. So we do need to be mindful of when we bring up those issues. But again, it is a serious, discrimination is a serious problem, and we do have to address it without any boundaries at all. And as I said, get angry. Yes, we need to be angry about it. So in terms of immigrant women and the civic
obligations,
I'd rather say civic rights rather than obligations. But as I said, educate your fellow women, educate your sister, your brothers, your husbands, your children. That's something we need to do. And how to do this, I think it's also a thing in terms of integration into the society. So surround yourselves with other people who live in the society. Not that we just stay alone, like, okay, we're women from Uganda alone, or we're women from Syria alone, or we're women from, you know, Kenya sitting alone. Rather, you know, mix up, try and get to know the Finnish women as well, and the society that we live in, the customs, the traditions. You know, join groups like, I don't know, Martat, you know, and or the Women's Bank, for instance, who do a lot of work for women. And there are lots of groups who work, do a lot of work for anti-racism actions. You can join all those groups and make voices be heard. So, for instance, I'd say at our university, students have like the student union, but there are also student associations where students can join, regardless of their background, and, you know, in that way also educate each other and advocate for women's rights and against discrimination. So there are very many ways of spreading the word against discrimination, of fighting discrimination. And I think I would like to say maybe increasing understanding between people, because that's what it is fundamentally about.
Yeah.
It's about understanding, like, okay, where do you come from? Where do I come from? You know, when you ask me for a coffee in Finland, is it the same thing as asking me for a coffee in Uganda? Yeah. You know, so, or, you know, how do we relate to different aspects in society, different behaviors? How do you greet somebody? Yeah. You know, so I think it's fundamentally about people not knowing each other, not understanding each other, and not knowing each other. But if we can bring different people together to discuss, to get to know each other and get to know each other's cultures, then we come so far away.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I support the fact that the cultural awareness, cultural differences, when people come together, then they get to understand, and the act of discrimination, it's going to be reduced to a minimal level. So, dear viewers, we are rounding up now, and at this moment, I want to encourage you to follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook on ANDSEA Global. So, any last word for our viewers as we round up?
I'd just like to say thank you for having me, and I'd just like to say to the viewers and other women that, you know, we live in Finland, and Finland's now our home together, and it's your home as it is any other Finn, and be open and show your own beautiful cultures and keep fighting.
So this has been a very, very beautiful moment, and my take home today, viewers, is the fact that you have to show love to those who discriminate against you. I think that's so beautiful. And engage yourself, get right information from the right sources. And you are being encouraged also to go to the police, and she has encouraged us also not to have the stigma. We should be, you know, resilience. You know, you are human, you're a woman, you are the same with every other person. So I want to thank you for watching. Once again, I am Tassi, and this is the Amin Talk Show. ANDSEA Global brings this to you. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful time. From me and my wonderful guest today, we say bye-bye.
Teddy made it.